I was tragically right. You see, back in July of 2025, when we got wind for the first time that Donald Trump might have been in the Epstein Files, I wrote a piece on my Substack saying that even if he was in the files, that wouldn't change the allegiance that white conservative Christians have to him. In fact, I said this in my piece. I said, quote, I want to hold out hope that if Trump is on some kind of client list related to Epstein's trafficking and child abuse, masses of white evangelicals will finally throw in the towel, finally denounce MAGA and the man at the top of it, Donald Trump. But the evidence says otherwise. Look, I don't enjoy speculating about something this horrific, but we have to be realistic. I keep seeing people convinced that this might be the final straw, the moment Trump's base turns on him. I hope that they're right. I just don't think that they are. Well, my friends, here we are several months later. Millions of files have been released, albeit heavily redacted, and Trump is mentioned a whopping 38,000 times across Epstein-related materials, and yet conservative evangelical leaders seem to have nothing to say about it, which is honestly so weird because they love to yap about everything else. Right now, they have a new campaign going around demanding that America overturn Obergefell, which gives equal marital rights to the queer community.
When Obergefell redefined marriage to include same-sex couples, it was billed as a win for adult equality. In reality, it created inequality for children. It made our children less than.
They hate that the upcoming Super Bowl halftime show is being performed by Bad Bunny. In fact, they themselves are offering their own family-friendly halftime show featuring Kid Rock, and I'm just saying, some of that guy's lyrics are anything but family-friendly. However, I digress. They also think that Alex Preddy got what he deserved. I covered that in a video a few days ago. See, these people are never at a loss for words. Talk radio yaps all day, right-wing pundits yap all day. They never are silent on issues that culture is discussing. But suddenly, on the Epstein Files, a cat's got their tongue. Not one word demanding accountability for their presidential messiah, which frankly is exactly what you expect, because here's the thing that many of you might not understand. White evangelicalism is an unaccountable movement, okay? If you didn't grow up in this world, I'm going to explain to you why that is. So keep watching because I have the receipts to prove it, but you need to understand that white evangelicalism is an unaccountable movement. So of course they're going to elect unaccountable people, and then they're going to protect those people even when they are all over the files of one of the most prolific in our lifetime. The Epstein Files touch every corner of society. You would think that the people who voted for Trump under the pretense of save the children, the QAnon conspiracy theorists who insisted that there was a deep state child trafficking ring moving in our government in the shadows, you would expect them to be all over this because, guys, you were right. There was a shadow network of child traffickers. Unfortunately, your dude is all over it. And by the way, let me be clear. If any Democrat is in the files, I don't care what their name is, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Bill Clinton, investigate. I do not care. I want every single person who is a part of this horrific, evil trafficking ring to be brought to justice. Now, despite Trump lying about his relationship with Epstein and being named repeatedly in the files, white evangelicals are not going to be swayed into abandoning their allegiance to the abuser-in-chief. And if you're surprised by this, you really shouldn't be, because Trump has a long history of being accused by dozens of women of sexual assault spanning decades. In 2019, for example, PBS, which has since been defunded by this administration, published a detailed report documenting 16 women who came forward accusing Trump of. According to that report, 16 women accused Donald Trump of various forms of sexual assault, including one accusation of and another whose description meets the legal definition of 4 women said that Trump walked in on them and other pageant contestants while they were undressing. BuzzFeed later reported that 3 additional women corroborated the pageant stories anonymously. The alleged incidents span from the early 1980s to 2013. Now, of course, Trump, as you would expect, has denied all the allegations, claiming that the women were politically motivated. That was then. That was in 2019. But we can go back even further. Because I'm not sure about you, but I remember in 2016 what happened. I remember that at the start of Trump's 2016 campaign, a tape was released in which the presidential candidate bragged about women. And I think we forget how explicit and grotesque that exchange actually was. So I'm going to play a clip and you can skip past it. I'm not playing it for shock value, but because accuracy and truth matters in an age of propaganda.
Moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it.
Whoa.
I did try and She was married.
Huge news, Sarah.
No, Nancy. Yeah. No, this was marriages. And I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture. I took her out furniture. I moved on her like a but I couldn't get there. And she was married. And all of a sudden, I see her. She's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look. I better use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the.
You know, after hearing that, I'm reminded of the words of Jesus in Luke 6:45. He says, "A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of." Despite Donald Trump quite literally bragging about sexual assault, evangelicals rallied around him. And I want to just make this personal because in 2016 when I saw this, I really thought that my faith tradition was going to go against and lambast Trump for those words. I thought he was going to lose support. I was a conservative white evangelical at the time, and I thought this is it. But I was gravely disappointed and frankly shocked when I saw people like Ralph Reed, he's the founder of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, dismiss the tape as irrelevant. He said, "Voters of faith are voting on issues like who will protect unborn life, defend religious freedom, create jobs, and oppose the Iran nuclear deal. 10-year-old tapes of private conversation with a television talk show host rank very low on their hierarchy of concerns." Wow. And then to follow that up, James Dobson, who, by the way, is actually in the Epstein Files because Jeffrey Epstein gave one of his alleged victims an article about forgiving people. James Dobson publicly condemned the comments of Trump, but he still insisted that Trump was the only acceptable choice. Here's what he said. "The comments Mr. Trump made 11 years ago were deplorable, and I condemn them entirely. I also find Hillary Clinton's support of partial birth abortion criminal and her opinion of evangelicals to be bigoted. There really is only one difference between the two. Mr. Trump promises to support religious liberty and the dignity of the unborn. Ms. Clinton promises she will not." Now, of course, this isn't true, right? Donald Trump is bragging about women. Certainly, it's not the same thing, but this was the rhetoric in 2016, and it worked, right? Because evangelicals backed him. They voted for him overwhelmingly in 2016 and 2020 and 2024. And since that time, Trump has said other deplorable things, like that he would date his own daughter if she weren't his daughter. He posed on the cover of Playboy magazine. He cheated on multiple wives. He lied about paying hush money to an adult film star while his wife was pregnant. All of these things directly contradict what I was taught God cared about when it came to the leaders in our society and in the church. And then, of course, there's E. Jean Carroll. A jury of Trump's peers found him liable for sexually abusing and defaming her, ordering him to pay $5 million in damages. Trump appealed and lost in June of last year. So let's be clear. Trump is not merely just accused of sexual abuse. He's been found legally liable for it. He is a sexual abuser. And yet white evangelicals continue to support him at unprecedented levels. Trump doesn't need to appear on an Epstein client list for his record to be clear. His own words, his actions, and actual legal court rulings already establish who he is. This is who Trump has always been. Always, since the beginning. And white evangelicals were made aware of it and just didn't care. Now, it's been known for years that Trump and Epstein were close. I mean, Epstein himself described Trump as one of his closest friends. There are videos and photos of the two laughing as they're pointing and whispering, talking about women. In fact, we also have, in Jeffrey Epstein's birthday book, Trump writing a really weird cryptic message to Jeffrey Epstein in the form of what looks to be like a young, undressed woman with his signature mimicking pubic hair. We have this. And in a 2002 New York Magazine interview, Trump even said that Epstein likes the girls on the younger side. None of this is new, which raises the real question. Why would the Epstein Files drop suddenly change anything? White evangelicals have had decades of information, and they have consistently chosen power over accountability. I need you all who did not grow up in this world to understand something. You are not going to be able to convince white evangelical leaders that Trump is the bad guy. There is nothing you could say, nothing you could do, nothing that will convince them that they are on the wrong side of history right now. They love what Trump is doing with ICE. They love that Trump calls female reporters piggy. They love that Trump just tells it like it is. This is who they voted for the past 3 election cycles. Do you really think they're going to change because Epstein Files dropped? They don't care. They just don't care. This is who evangelicalism protects. And the other reason, in case you need more evidence, that I don't believe this is going to break the MAGA evangelical world is because this is the kind of leaders that they already tolerate and defend in their own churches. One great example among many is John MacArthur, one of the most prolific pastors in the white evangelical space. A couple years ago, the story broke that John MacArthur protected not one, but 2 different men on his staff who their own children. I'll link the articles below. You can read them for yourself. The receipts are damning. When John MacArthur died last year, people like Ali Stuckey, Al Mohler, other evangelical leaders praised him as a good, faithful gospel preacher. This is who they support. But he's far from an exception. We have Robert Morris, who a 12-year-old when he was in his 20s. He kept the story quiet for decades, becoming the pastor of the largest evangelical church in America. He was also on Donald Trump's spiritual advisory team. He was indicted on charges of lewd acts with a child and convicted. Brian Houston, who's the founding pastor of Hillsong, arguably the biggest evangelical megachurch structure maybe in the entire world. Their music is sung by hundreds of thousands of churches. They reach millions of people. Well, he ended up in another woman's hotel room, intoxicated, and that story was suppressed for years. Brian and his wife Bobby have since started another church called JesusFollowers.tv after resigning in disgrace from Hillsong due to financial impropriety along with Brian's inappropriate actions. Brian was also accused of covering up his father's own of children, but was later acquitted of those charges in court. There's also Carl Lentz, who had an affair while preaching purity culture from the pulpit. He created a toxic culture at Hillsong, New York City, where volunteers were exploited, church funds were spent on lavish gifts, and he was also accused of Carl is now doing podcast interviews, and he's back in the public spotlight. We have Mark Driscoll, whose anger and narcissism and unrepentant attitude is so well known, there's an entire podcast series documenting his actions that destroyed his first church, Mars Hill. And get this, when the church collapsed due to Mark's terrible behavior, Robert Morris, the one who I mentioned earlier, who's currently in prison for child sexual abuse, he brought Mark on stage at his church and vouched for him, calling Mark a great man of God.
And most of what you read is not true. Some of it is. He did make some mistakes. Here's what I figure. We've got 2 choices. One is we could crucify him. But since someone's already been crucified for him, the other choice is we could restore him with a spirit of gentleness, considering ourselves, lest we are also tempted. that in the church, we're the only army that shoots at our wounded. And I want you to stop it. I really do. Thank you. I'd like for you to show your love for him. I'd like for you to just welcome him. Mark, would you stand up? This is Mark Driscoll.
And today, Mark Driscoll is more popular than ever with over 1 million followers on Instagram and is regularly featured on shows like The Charlie Kirk Show. And then we have, this is a deep cut for you evangelicals out there, apologist Ravi Zacharias. Ravi Zacharias was someone I listened to all the time. My dad listened to him. He had one of the biggest apologetic ministries in the world. And it was exposed that after his death, he was a serial sex abuser who spiritually manipulated victims and threatened them with eternal consequences if they spoke out. According to an article by Christianity Today, one woman told the investigators that after he arranged for the ministry to provide her with financial support, he required sex from her. She then called it. She said Zacharias made her pray with him to thank God for the opportunity they both received. And as with other victims, called her his reward for living a life of service to God. The report says that Zacharias warned the woman, a fellow believer, that if she ever spoke out against him, she would be responsible for millions of souls lost when his reputation was damaged. Different denominations, same pattern. Charismatic, powerful, untouchable leaders until they're not. And even then, many of them are often quietly restored to ministry. Look up the story of Mike Bickle. There are so many examples I could give over and over and over again. White evangelicalism has demonstrated time and time again that the systems and institutions they built are designed to protect the men in power. Are you shocked that they're protecting Trump? Does that blow your mind at all now, given this kind of information? And honestly, friends, perhaps there is no greater modern example of this kind of unaccountable abuse than the Southern Baptist Convention. It's the largest conglomerate of evangelical churches in America. Fun fact, the institution was founded in 1845 over the right to own other human beings, aka slavery. Yep. That's right. They literally broke from their Baptist brethren because they were so convinced that they had a biblical right to own other human beings. Anyway, the SBC was discovered to have been hiding hundreds of sexual abuse cases, some including children, that went back more than 2 decades. In fact, a 300-page report revealed that denomination leaders ignored and covered up sex abuse allegations while vilifying sex abuse survivors. Examples cited include influential conservative activists and former judge Paul Pressler, who was accused of a young man in 1977 who was a college student at the time. And by the way, just so you know, many Christian nationalist leaders in the SBC, like William Wolf and journalist Megan Basham, are doing everything they can to discredit SBC abuse survivors and advocates. So look, when people ask me, surely if Trump is on an Epstein list, they'll turn on him, right? My answer is simple. Hell no, they won't. This is the system operating as designed. They'll call it fake news. They'll blame the media. They'll blame liberals. They might even blame the devil himself, because accountability has never been the point. Now, some in the MAGA world might be angry about the Epstein Files. They might say it's not their favorite thing. They might even express outrage online. They may even have some questions, but make no mistake, they're not interested in the answers. These people are too busy still talking about Hunter Biden's laptop than to actually care about the millions of files that have Trump's name all over them. It's wild when you think about what's actually happening right now. A convicted felon who's also someone who was found liable of sexually abusing a woman, who's all over the Epstein Files, is currently in charge of our country, and he's bringing hell on earth to anyone who isn't like him or his tribe. And it's the white evangelical world that is his most die-hard and loyal supporters. The people who will tell you that if you are serving at your local church and you have sex outside of marriage, you probably aren't qualified to lead in the church. But hey, Donald Trump, anointed by God. This is not about repentance. And outrage is not transformation. And I'll tell you right now, I don't see the Christian leaders in Trump's White House resigning. I don't see Paula White resigning as the senior advisor of the White House Faith Office. I don't see her resigning over this. I don't see Mike Huckabee leaving the administration in protest. I definitely don't see MAGA faith leaders like Mark Driscoll, Josh Howerton, and Lance Wallnau instructing their followers to denounce the administration over this. And yes, I believe that to be true. Even if video footage of Trump abusing a child came to light, and it makes my skin crawl to even say that, but nearly a decade of evidence tells me it's true. Don't forget, Trump once said that he could shoot someone in broad daylight and not lose support. History suggests that he wasn't wrong. MAGA and the white evangelical complex that fuels it are unredeemable systems because they are operating exactly as intended. This is the fruit of white Christian nationalism. This is not a bug. This is a feature. It's ugly. It's abusive. It's harmful. And the sooner America sees it clearly, the sooner it can be dismantled. This is the reality of the situation that we are living in, folks. Trump lied. His team lied about his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein and his name being in the Epstein Files. They hid it from the American people. Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators are some of the most vile, evil men to have ever walked the planet. Hard stop. I would imagine the white evangelicals who preach about hating evil and loving what is good would be all over this. Because I would imagine, or I would hope, that their morals and their integrity supersede partisan politics. But as you can see, it's about partisan politics. It's about our side being right and defending our guy at any cost. And it's inexcusable. It's inexcusable behavior. But this is the current state of the conservative church. And frankly, it's why I left. It's why so many of you left. Not because we were having a crisis of faith, but because we were having a crisis of theology. How do you grow up in a worldview, in a system that preaches sexual purity over and over and over again, only to then turn around and say, if you don't vote for the abuser, you're not a real Christian. If you don't vote for the guy who's tearing children away from their parents in the name of capturing the bad immigrants, you're on the wrong side. Please don't be shocked. Don't be surprised by the absolute silence or even worse, excuses for Trump being in the Epstein Files. This is how white evangelicalism, Christian nationalism, whatever you want to call it, this is how it operates. It will always protect those in power, no matter the cost, no matter who it harms, no matter what children are sacrificed, no matter what survivors come forward with their testimony. If it harms their access to privilege and power, they are discarded like garbage. And instead, their Messiah-in-chief is praised as a hero for being on the side of biblical values. Hey, I really appreciate you all watching this video. Thank you so much. It really means the world. Look, this channel is just getting started, friends. I appreciate you being here. Please make sure to give this video a like, leave a comment. I do read all of the comments. It really helps me when it comes to shaping content for the channel. I just really am grateful for all of you being here. It means the world. Talk to y'all later.